And we are live. Welcome everybody to Lubbock Compact Live for Wednesday, it's a habit, Tuesday, January 2nd, first show of the year. And this is actually the very first time that we've had the show on a day that wasn't a Wednesday. We did have to accommodate our guest tonight because he's a pastor, and so very understandable where he will be at tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. And so in order for us to have this very important conversation and to have him be able to answer your questions, we just wanted to make sure to make some time for this to happen. And so, Mr. Stubblefield, we do appreciate you coming on the show.
Well, bless you, Brother Adam. I thank you guys for the opportunity and allowing me to be able to participate with you all. And thank you for the work and the labor that you do.
Awesome. And Josh, before we get kicked off with the interview portion, I will just sort of kind of refresh folks of how this all came to be. There's been a couple of meetings that happened for District 2. A lot of people felt like they didn't get their questions answered, and this is an opportunity for those questions to get answered. This is also an opportunity, I feel like, for Mr. Stubblefield to showcase some of the good things that are also happening at Estacado and the rest of District 2. I think it's important for the conversation to go both ways, because while we can understand that there may be issues and challenges that schools are dealing with or campuses are dealing with, we should also not just focus on everything that's bad. I feel like that we need to also acknowledge and recognize and take pride in those things that are really going well, because it's important to our kids. I have heard from some kids, some families, where they feel like some schools get a bad rap and that's all you sort of hear. So I did want to have that opportunity to, again, put forward some of those positive things that are happening, let everybody know it's not all bad, and then have those conversations with the questions that we need to have. And so once again, thanks to Mr. Stubblefield for being here. Josh, go ahead and if you want to ask the first question.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great recap. And so, we want to start like kind of right where some of this left off, my understanding of it anyway. So we know that there was some like maintenance issues and pest control issues that kind of brought all this to the fore and kind of got this going, or at least, the latest aspects of it. So maybe you want to take a second, Bill, and refresh our memory about what this was that happened and how it's been addressed, and kind of just bring everybody up to speed and put a period on that one, or let everybody know what they need to know.
Absolutely. Thank you, Josh. Well, the biggest problem that we had with the information that got out, right, is that we had a mice problem. Then the second thing that we had was a sewer problem. Well, I want to start with the mice problem. Now, the mice problem is a problem that has been going on since we were all kids. I was sharing with Adam at the District 2 meeting at Estacado that this is not a situation that is new at all. One of the things that exacerbated the problem at Estacado is that directly west of Estacado is a field that was recently purchased to become a turf farm, right? Well, there is a lot of livestock. It was purchased, first of all, from the Texas Mule Deer Society. And the reason why it's called Mule Deer Society, because that field actually had deer in it. Had a lot of animals, wildlife, coyotes, foxes, rabbits, deer, raccoons, skunks, all of that. And no doubt there were mice in that field. Well, with the drought that we've also been experiencing, and glory be to God, I think we're coming out of some of the water restrictions. At least I hope that we are coming when we start the spring here. But we had the mice in the field due to the construction, due to the lack of water. What they naturally do is go to a water source. And I don't know how many folks are aware, but most of your campuses have a well on them. And one of the things about Estacado is that Estacado is the largest land campus in Lubbock ISD. Don't know how many of you know that. It's the only campus that has all the athletic facilities on the campus grounds. Your baseball facility, your football facility, your basketball gym, softball, tennis, all of that is all on the campus grounds. It's the largest land campus. So it also uses the most water. If you've ever been out there, oftentimes the practice field, there are two practice fields between two football practice fields between the football field, the baseball field, and the tennis courts right in that area. And so it's always being watered. There actually is the well out there. The mice came because of the water. They got in. They're going to go to a natural food source. One of the issues that exacerbated the problem was that we did have, after we did a bit more thorough investigation, a lot of food were in classrooms. A lot of, whether it was staff having food or students being allowed to bring snacks and stuff, but it wasn't being properly disposed of. So that helped to create more mice. The thing that was done, we have a pest control company, Mears Pest Control, and they stepped up their pest control inside and out. A lot of people have said, well, why come y'all just don't put poison down and things of that nature? Now, you can do that in your own home. Can't do that in the school. It's against the law. Public spaces, things of that nature. We got a lot of traps that are around all of the buildings in Lubbock ISD. And then there were some particular traps called metal cats, and they really started doing the job. But the problem in and of itself, again, intensified with the development of the turf farm. And now they're doing the thing that's, I don't know if you guys know this, that's north of Estacado right there. They're getting ready to, where the oil pump is, they're going to put some houses over there. And so they're cleaning that off. And we got so much going on, but that's another story. And so they came in over there, came into the school building. The big problem is that there were mice droppings that were found at the cafeteria entry door. That was a health code violation from the health department. Health department closed the cafeteria down that particular day that they came out to do the inspection, which they should. And what doesn't get out there, the information that doesn't get out there, is that all of that's the reason that they stopped the serving of food. It's because they found the mice droppings, but everything was corrected. That was corrected on site, but the lunch period was going on. So the district came in and got everybody pizza, got all the students fed regardless of that day. And it wasn't the entirety of the cafeteria, it was the kitchen, right? So students could still go in and sit in the dining area and still eat pizza. So that was that issue with the mice. The other issue was the sewage problem. Okay. So this sewage issue is now, it's probably going to be an ongoing issue, but it's not to the detriment of any of the students, any of the occupants of the building, staff, teachers, any of that. If you know your history about Estacado, underneath Estacado, there's a gun range, and then there's all these tunnels, because Estacado was designed as a fallout shelter. A lot of people didn't know that. A lot of people just did not know that historically about Estacado, and that's including administration, that's including Sodexo personnel. Sodexo is the company that we contract out with that does all the janitorial and business facilities maintenance, right? Heck, they didn't even know it. And so when we started getting this smell, so the smell was last spring. So we're talking about May of 23, right? Before the end of the 22-23 school year. So they were noticing, admin noticed it. They put in a work order, called Sodexo. Sodexo came out, they did their thing. What they're going to do, they're going to come in and they're going to drop bombs and put stuff down drains and all that kind of stuff, just as the normal procedures that they go by when they feel like there's what's known as sewer gas. And I guess it's supposed to clog. I'm not an expert in that area, right? So they did that. Now, school is being dismissed for the summer. And there was no summer school at Estacado, from my understanding. because I think they were doing roof work. Well, started school August of last year, comes back, you know, and so the admin, they come back and they're coming in, they're like, man, this smell is worse, right? So this is in August. So they made the same report. Sodexo's coming out, and then they're trying to find this smell. They're trying to find exactly where this is happening, right? They finally narrowed it down to restrooms that are on the southwest area, which is over by the library. If you've been in Estacado, they narrowed it down to those restrooms. And so what they had to do was start digging into the restroom. So they closed off the restroom, boarded them up, pulled the toilets up, and all that kind of stuff. So the construction was the repair was actually going on during that time. Well, they thought that they had it fixed, or thought that they were actually they didn't think that they had it fixed. They found out that the problem was bigger than than just a restroom location. They ended up getting into these tunnels, and they didn't know that these tunnels were there. So I want you to keep in mind, this was the restrooms that are on the southwest end of the building. Okay. Now, where the reparations were being made were on the southeast. So we had out of the 3 companies that that are on our vendors list, only one of them, we went to 2. The first 2 said that they couldn't do it, said that they weren't equipped, they wouldn't, or whatever. Then we finally got, and that took a while just to find those companies to come out to get there and get the job going. And then we finally got with the one plumbing company that got out there, and they started working on it. And when they saw what it was, they were letting us know it's going to take a minute. It's going to take a while. And so on that southeast end is where they had the vehicles, and they were digging, they got under the ground, and they saw that how huge this tunnel network is. And so what it was, and I don't, for me personally now, our administrators, particularly Rick Rodriguez, who is the chief operations officer, he may have some speculation as to how long this has actually been going on. I don't know if the plumbing company was able to tell us that, but it had been going on for a while. I mean, I'm talking about this is several months, probably not even over this school year, you know, but nobody knew it because nobody knew that this space was underneath Estacado. You're talking about, again, fallout shelter tunnels. I would be interested to know what is all under there. I know that there is a gun range that has been under there. I've actually, when I was in Estacado, I actually was down there before, seen it before. But those tunnels are like maybe completely on the opposite end from where they were digging at. And so it's a big network that's under there, is what I'm saying. So Mr. Rodriguez said during the meeting at Estacado that this is going to probably be a situation that we would have to keep up with addressing, because even after the plumbing company felt like they got it corrected, the substructure underneath the building, well, there was another issue with that same restroom that where those toilets started backing up again and flooding again, and they had to shut them down and go in. But I don't know, and I'm just going to be honest with you, I don't know what the cause of that backup was, but it wasn't this issue. It was something completely different. So with that, they got that fixed, got it situated, and got that corrected. That's both of these issues that have been corrected. The mice, that's going to be ongoing. The substructure of the building, that's such an interesting situation that they're going to continue to look at that. And I don't know. Hopefully they'll get something figured out with that. That's just me as a community member, as a college graduate, wanting to know, man, now how deep is this tunnel network? How extensive is it? Is there anything else going on? So this is what's been the assignment for admin down at central office there, because some of our buildings are so old. I don't know if you guys knew this, but even a couple of years ago, we had a big issue with the boiler system over at Lubbock High. And man, you talking about ancient. It was like, whoa. Yeah. And just trying to find folks who could fix that stuff. right? So a lot of our buildings are very old. So now we're sort of Rick is working and they're trying to find schematics and blueprints and really go and do their homework on these buildings.
No, that makes a lot of
Go
sense.
ahead.
No, I'm glad you provided that lengthy explanation. I mean, I think like laying out all the details like that really helps people. Adam, what did you want to get in before we, move off this issue or?
No, I mean, I think we're heading in the same direction. So, Robert, I do see your question. I'll ask that here in a little bit. I do want to sort of, now that that's uh, sort of been addressed, we can just go on. At the District 2 meeting at Estacado, Bill, y'all did an exercise where you had some pads and they had some various departments of the district and what issues people thought they saw and what sort of solutions would they like to see and things of that nature. So there was a lot of feedback that people wrote down on those pads through that exercise. What has anything come from any of that feedback? Who looks at that feedback? I guess what are next steps on that feedback portion from that meeting?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question, Adam. What they've been instructed. So after all of the town hall meetings occur, we've got one more, I believe, when we get back from the break, and that's with Trustee Ratliff. It's going to be at Coronado. They're taking all of the information, and we've as trustees, we've instructed them. We want to give reports back to the community. We want to make all district wide. It's going to be a district wide report. It's going to deal with each one of the districts, each school issue. If there were specific school issues that were brought up and addressed within these breakout sessions, and then it's coming back to the community. We want to make sure that through the communications department with Aaron Gregg, that we get this information out, that it gets into each one of the principals on each campus within each district, and that they're sharing it, they're giving it back to the parents, to the staff and everyone. So we know, because what we want to do, Adam, one of my biggest deals is making sure that the community are co-creators of solutions with us. Because when you have voice, you have more buy-in. And that's what I believe is intentional. One of the biggest issues is that it's always been this thing out there where in school systems is teachers versus parents. And that is not how it should ever be. There should be a working partnership that for the benefit of the students, right? And for the school system and the network. One of the things I've said, it's an experience that I've actually witnessed, is wherever there is a strong, vibrant PTA filled with parent participation, the academic performance, the extracurricular activities, man, that school is doing great. And the level of pride it's almost tangible. You can almost touch it when you have parent involvement on that level. When you have a huge successful PTA, you have a huge successful school, or you have huge successes in the school. Not necessarily a huge successful school, but huge successes in the school. So hopefully we're going to get this information back to our PTAs as well, and really get more feedback and keep these kind of community conversations going.
Awesome. Well, that's a great segue into this question that Robert Baxter has down here. And this is something that you and I spoke about when we were talking amongst ourselves over at the District 2 meeting. And one of the things I obviously feel very strongly about is what you were just talking about, that collaboration. And one of the topics we got to talking about that night was the importance of having that communication, right? When you don't have, I don't even want to say proper communication. Well, I guess when you don't have maybe enough communication between parties, any sort of relationship is going to break down, right? Whether that's a marriage,
Absolutely.
whether that's a friendship, whatever that be, right? And so I think that's what Robert is trying to get to. You've already sort of said y'all are going to do this report, so I think that's part of this. but I guess if you could just go in a little deeper, or maybe if you have any thoughts or plans, or maybe other things you might implement. He's just saying, going forward, how will you make sure that all District 2 parents, as well as student voices, are heard in a timely manner so that we don't have these types of communication issues? So do you have any thoughts about, are there things that you're thinking about that the district could do better as far as trying to have that communication from the actual district to the parents and students?
And so, hey, Brother Robert, thank you for that question. The biggest system that the school district has as the voice to communicate to the parents is the Parent Teacher Association. It's the PTA, right? Districts do call outs, they do mailers, they do all of this stuff to try to communicate with parents. Oftentimes, that's just the transmission side of communication. And I'm 100% in agreement with you, Adam. When you have ineffective communication, relationships break down, right? But communication is two-way street. It's not just it's not analog, it's dialogue, right? And so that's the transmission side. What I believe, if there is something happening on the receiving end of communication. I've seen this firsthand. I past parent. I was one of them. When you register and get the calls, the automatic calls and notifications, your son didn't show up for class, or daughter was absent this period, so on and so forth. You start to get a little frustrated with how many texts and how many calls you're getting. And I'm speaking about me now. I'm speaking about me and past experiences. And I just started ignoring some of those, calls and stuff like that. It just begins to be redundant. I don't know the answer to the receiving side of communication. I think the district does their best because they're going to communicate based on the information that they're providing. And we're constantly asking parents to update phone numbers. We're constantly asking them to come and check in. You got the grade book. I am mindful that although we don't have that many parents using online features, we do have more than what it was, right? So you can check progress. You can communicate directly with each teacher right there online. I do believe that there is an onus that's put on parents to go to the schools, right? As a parent, I was very, 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 very active when my kids, both of my kids, my youngest son and my daughter, they're Estacada graduates. My oldest son, he graduated down in Jasper, Texas. He went to Dunbar, though. He should have went to Estacada. That's a whole nother story. We're not going to go into that. Just sort of frustrated me. But they all went through Estacada. So I was very involved, very engaged, and was always up there. But I'm mindful that's not how everyone is. The information that gets out, I don't know how to, other than showing up at somebody's house and knocking on doors, how do you get parents to buy in to what the district is doing?
Yeah,
I think that's one of the big things, right? I've coached Little League, I coached Little League football, Little League baseball, little dribblers. I did all that with my kids coming up till they got to the high school level. Then, they're playing organized UIL sports, or middle school rather. Well, some sports, middle school. And I was one of those coaches taking kids home, picking kids up, and you just had to hold the kids. Sometimes kids came to the house and just spent the night because we couldn't find parents, and you do that, you sign up for that. But
Right.
the solution on how to make parents own or partner with the communication efforts of the district, I mean, I don't really know what that is. And I'm
no,
interested.
that's great.
We're open.
Yeah, real quick, Josh, before you go there, because this is a follow-up from Robert, and I think it goes into something that I'd maybe like to propose. And we talked about this a little bit. We didn't really get to talk a super long time at the event, but we did touch on this very briefly. And I'll ask his question, and then I'll sort of give my thoughts, and then see where you're at with that. And so he says, "Is there any outreach in place to reach parents about the importance of these communications?" So that's Robert's follow-up question. But the thing I was going to say, and that we were talking about that night, is, and we understand that who knows all the reasons that parents are disengaged or not receiving messages or whatever the case may be. One thing we do know about human beings, not even just parents, but human beings, is they're on social media, right? And we talked about that. One of the things I feel like you and others, not just putting it all on you, but any trustee, any official, any sort of leader, this is something that I do. If I feel like I need to hop on and make a video or do something of that nature, you could open your phone, you could record a video and say, hey, boom, 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 this is what's happening. Just want to let y'all know. Or maybe try to proselytize to them to get them into the PTA, right? And talk about the importance of that, right? Is that something that you feel like could happen with you individually, and then maybe with other trustees, maybe with the district as a whole? And we know that there's many platforms. There's Facebook, there's TikTok, Instagram. Those would be the main three. Is there any way that you could see maybe just doing that, not all the time, right? Because we got to be practical. But like, for instance, when this thing happened with the mice and the plumbing, and what you just did took a few minutes. You could just pop up over your phone, boom, 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 post it and say, this is what's happening, right? What do you think about that?
I totally agree with you. I think the onus, again, is the direct level communicator. So it happened at Estacada School, right? I think that it would have been good for the administrators or it has to be an administrator, right? Someone who's in charge there. Maybe not necessarily the principal, but those that are responsible for the social media, because I as far as my understanding goes, is that there is someone on each campus who's doing all the posting. Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with you. I feel like the district, we need to get with our communications department that's down in central office, and we need to have the necessary training that takes place. I don't know what it is, on how to diffuse negative situations or any situation that has the potential to be negative. Because one of my biggest statements to Dr. Kathy Rollo is that we have to tell our own story. We're going to be able to control the narrative better than anybody. That's something years ago. I'm one of the co-founders at the time for what's known as the Community Engagement Task Force. And how that happened, myself, Bishop Bill Watson, Superintendent David Haynes, back when Roger Ellis was the police chief before Greg Stevens. And we started noticing a lot of the stuff that was happening, right? We went in and had a conversation with him about, hey, we need to start having dialogue with community leaders, in particularly in minority communities, about the tensions that exist, whether it's racial profiling, whether it's community policing. We need to have these conversations, right? Well, of course, Chief Nellis, he ends up retiring. We hire Greg Stevens. That time, Glenn Robertson was the mayor. Then we get Dan Pope. Well, then we get into 2016 and we have the shooting down in Dallas. And I gave a call to Greg Stevens. Man, we need to talk, because any town USA could have been Arlington or whatever. I'm bringing that up to say is that we came to the level of understanding that there's got to be a task force that you assign to address issues. And Stevens and I said, we have the power to tell our own story better than anyone else. And that's what we always wanted to do. We always wanted to be the ones telling our story rather than letting someone else come in and tell their story, because it's going to be filled with misinformation, anecdotes, and falsehoods. And so if you tell it at the ground level, you have the better opportunity to tell it accurately. I also say this to Dr. Rollo, and what we also need to talk about more than anything, I don't want to overemphasize the highlights. I want to talk about lowlights. What are the areas that we need to improve in? Because if we focus on those areas the most, the highlights will always be there. And it's sort of like when my son was playing ball, we were out there trying to get him scholarship or whatever. And I told him when you had his highlight reel, I said, we're not just going to put highlights on there because coaches know what you do well. They want to know what you need help with. And so we always want to talk about those lowlights. Now, we don't want to spend 90% of our time talking about problems and only 10% talking about solutions, right? Let's go ahead, talk about the problems right off the top. Now let's work together to co-create solutions with that. So I firmly believe we could have a task force at each campus that's responsible for communicating to parents, handling the social media. And I think you should employ or involve the community and schools worker, if there is one on the campus, your PTA president, if they are there, and definitely one of the administrators. And I think it should always be a coach involved. That's just me personally. I'm just spitballing here, brainstorming on what that task force would look like. But people that are there to deal with negative issues and stuff like that, even when there's an altercation in school. Now, what we do have to be careful with, right, is the HEPA violations, not talking about stuff that we can't talk about.
Right.
Now, and like, I want to get in here just a minute. So like, I'm a former educator, and so I can see, and I'm involved community activist and organizer. And so I can see both ends of this, both perspectives here. And I can see where you're coming from, and I think you've said a lot of like really positive things here, and I think these are all great ideas. The one place I want to push back on here is that a lot of what it seems like, you're like, well, we want to tell our own story. We want to control this narrative. And like, what I think you have going on here is a trust deficit, actually.
Oh, absolutely.
And so people, when they're left in a position where they can't trust, or they can't trust the messenger, or they don't trust the institution anymore, then you have this barrier there. So in those circumstances, it often doesn't matter what you're saying. They're not prepared to receive it, and I'm not telling you anything you don't know. You're a pastor and a man of the world, and this is not new to you. But what I would say is that the reason why misinformation and rumor and gossipy type things travel around so fastly is because it fits to a pattern of real practice there that is congruent in people's mind. And so even when something is, it has an explanation, we've all lived out in West Texas our whole life. We understand what it is to disturb field mice and what it is to be in a school and have hot Cheetos in everybody's locker, and how like one problem can compound to another problem. I think everybody can kind of understand that. It's like, are they prepared to receive and trust the explanations when they're delivered? And that is a more difficult problem to repair because, as you know, I'm a former band director myself. You were talking about coaches, and sports programs are often like this. It takes a long time to build a thing of quality that can be trusted and relied on. And it takes almost no time to destroy that thing. And it can take just a few errors and all of a sudden it's shot. And so the only type of pushback I would give, and I would welcome your response to this. We have other questions to get to. I don't want to spend too much long talking about it, but how do you see this issue of how does the district and the trustees and its messengers and its administrators do the long-term work to build up that trust so that you have credit in the bank, so that when something happens and it kind of blows up, that people aren't prepared to just like pile on every other problem and criticism, but they're prepared to build with you and give some grace to an issue and creatively construct the type of thing that you guys want. Does that make any sense?
It absolutely makes sense, Josh, and I love what you're saying, and I also love that you said you don't want to give a whole lot to it because of we got other questions stuff. It's dangerous
Right.
when you get a preacher, you know, and let him have a
I
platform.
know. I'm like
they
this
want to
too.
talk.
And I'm not even part of the clergy.
But so I love what Craig Groeschel gives a great formula for trust. He says trust equals consistency plus transparency plus vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Love that formula. And I think we have to have more of that. We have to be more consistent, more transparent, and both consistency and transparency require us to be vulnerable. And I think the problem again comes back to when we talk about the highlights. We don't want to say what we don't do good. We don't want to say where we're weak. We don't want you to see our the stuff that we got in the closet or up under the rug, right? But I think it's where we need to talk about those issues. We need to say, because the biggest thing and that we see as oftentimes that we look at schools with is academic performance. And that's where schools get their grade. That's where they're rated. And that's what determines what's best in schools is based on academic performance. But when I look at Estacado, nobody is celebrating how well Estacado has done over the last 8 years. And it just blows my mind that nobody is recognizing that the academic performance of Estacado has consistently outperformed some of its peers right here in the city. 3 years running, you know, the last 3 years, Estacado has academically outperformed Monterey and Coronado. But I don't hear anybody saying that, right? And I think for me, there's an expectation. Oh yeah, you're gonna say it. You're gonna say it, so nobody actually hears it, right? It's sort of like the boy who cried wolf, but I'm not crying that there's a wolf. I'm saying, hey, we're doing good. We're doing good. We're cheerleading and we're doing well. But I just think that the exacerbation of the stereotype and the negative mindset that looks at Estacado High School just says, no, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. It's like saying, we're going to close Estacado. I'm just telling you, I'm so sick of that statement, right? Estacado is not going to close. It is the high school. It is one of the few high schools in the state of Texas that has consistently had a population increase within the student body every year. One of the only high schools in the state of Texas during COVID to experience a growth in student body. I mean, that's phenomenal. But when it comes to me spreading that information, one of the things, it's not so much as the messenger, but those who are carrying the messages, right? So I want to see people carry those positive messages as well. But I do also want to deal with those hard truths. I do want to deal with those, with the black eyes and the bruises that are there as well. But I think we have to, as a community, again, come together, not to attack, not to grandstand, and come together to sit down, much like this conversation, I believe, is taking place right now. And let's have true, genuine, quality conversation that, again, let's be consistent with it. Let's be transparent. Let's be vulnerable. I want to be better. Yeah, I think everybody has that as a goal, or should, you know, as an individual in whatever role in which I occupy. And I want to align myself with people that want me to be better. I want to be with people that are standing for what I'm for, who are also against what I'm against. But I'm okay with also talking to those people that are not for what I'm for, and they're not against what I'm against. I want to be able to share those sides and have that dialogue. Now, how do we go about doing that? We just invite people to the table, but we have to have systems of control. And we have to say, hey, look, this is not here where we're going to backstab and backbite, and we're going to get out here and we're going to start fighting and cussing each other out. That doesn't get anything accomplished. Not at all.
Yeah,
You know, and then and we have to be willing to admit what we don't know.
Yeah, no, that's
right. Go
well
ahead.
said. I do want to move on to one thing. There's a lot of comments coming in. We have some teachers commenting. We got some communities and schools folks commenting, and so it's all a great conversation going on in here. But there is something that I saw in the news I wanted to sort of hit on before we get out of here, and we only got a little bit of time here. So the Lubbock Partnership Network. It was recently announced. I think we've spoke briefly maybe about the structure of that here on the show, maybe in passing. But basically, for everybody listening, the Lubbock Partnership Network was created to take over. It's 3 of the schools, Bill. Is that correct?
It was 4 schools.
Four schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 4 schools in District 2 for a period of time, and this was set by the state. If I'm understanding correctly, Dr. Rollo has told me that she went and advocated for that because they were trying to close down Dunbar, and that's something that actually saved Dunbar from being closed, from what I understand. So that process has played out, from what I understand from the recent reporting. And there's some folks with some questions here from the community that we're basically asking some questions about that. So they want to know what happened with the Lubbock Partnership Network. Where is that at? And then also we know Miss Cicely Alexander was the director of that. Where does she go? Where does she land? What does this look like going forward?
So with the Lubbock Partnership Network, and I'll give the background on it, just try to be brief with it. So when I came on the school board, I came on the school board in 2016. 2017, we got told that Dunbar was in its 5th year of what's known as improvement required, IR. Call from the commissioner. You guys got to decide what you're going to do because our plan is to close Dunbar down. And the only other option, you had 2 options or 3 options: close the school down, send folks somewhere else. You can close it down for a year. You can repurpose it. It won't be the same type of facility. Or you can do away with the trustees and the superintendent and start all over with from the top down. Well, at that time, all of our trustees were like brand new, had just got elected. So we got handed this, right? So we came up with a different plan, and we got the community in the room. We've had several meetings down at Lubbock ISD to help get their input. And so Dr. Rollo, Zach Brady, and myself, we came up with this design. And by and large, Zach was the one who took a lot of the information. We're in the room. We're making phone calls. Hey, what about this? What about this? And he ultimately came up with the right plan, right? We presented it to the commissioner. We went down to we spent a few days going back and forth to Austin and sitting in front of his desk and telling him, we're going to keep this school open and you're going to have to help us. Zach also got on the phone, called Charles Perry, called Dustin Burrows, and called John Frullo. Those 3, John Frullo is now, it's Carl Tepper who's the rep, but those 3 gentlemen did a huge service to Lubbock ISD in crafting what was known as Senate Bill 1882. Down in Austin, it's called the Dunbar Bill. It's called the Dunbar Bill, and it gave the commissioner the authority when any schools are facing closure within any academic period, he can exempt any one school of his choice. And that school will then go into a charter system. Our system was so unique because we created the Lubbock Partnership Network, which was an in-district charter. That's not what any of the new 1880 schools are permitted to do. We're the grandfather of it. We're the big dogs in it. And so we had authority as far as advisory on how to govern and manage, but it was still a hands-off approach. All of the employees of those schools were considered Lubbock ISD employees, except for Dr. Cicely Alexander. She was the sole employee executive principal for the Lubbock Partnership Network. And she was hired by their management committee. So it was sort of like a mini MINI school district within a school district. And she was like a mini superintendent over those schools, and their management committee is who she reported to, so on and so forth. Still sort of, she had a quasi stance. She was in two worlds. And that's the whole thing now, is that with TEA, that charter is totally managed and governed by a TEA approved charter system, say like responsive education. The district has no say so in it at all. The total finances are part of the charter. Everybody is an employee of the charter. So we were on uncharted ground operating this charter, but we created it that way to protect the employees, right? Because what Marath wanted at that time, and what they determined that we had 3 years to fix this, right? We had 3 years for Dunbar to go from an F to a C, F rating to a C rating. Well, we got COVID and got 2 years of extensions. That's exactly, in this sense, COVID helped Dunbar, right? Gave us a little bit more time and a little bit more resources to put into the network. And successfully, Dunbar came out of 10 years of sanctions, and they had the C rating. So that's the reason why it's coming to an end, because TEA never meant for it to be permanent. TEA does not want the Lubbock Partnership Network the way that it currently exists. They have wanted us to basically acquiesce to the other models that are out there. And was just never going to happen. And so we just sort of stood our ground with that, right? And the time for it has elapsed. Once it did what it was supposed to do, then the goal that the commissioner or TEA had was that, well, that following year it's done. And we kept it a little bit longer, so we feel like it's that the schools are in a good place, that they're coming back to district oversight, and thus they're going to get the same type of supports. Nothing is going to change other than the fact that there are other resources and other grant opportunities that are out there that are going to supplement some of the things that were being done through the partnership network. We look, I think it's very favorable that we're going to get the grants based on our innovation team. I think they say it's real strong that we're going to get those grants. We missed out on these grants because of, in the previous application process, because of the Lubbock Partnership Network, right? And I think that's just TEA's like, we ain't giving you our money, you won't do what we're doing, play ball with us type deal. But now that's a total Bill opinion. That's not anything else. That's my total opinion. That's how I'll be looking at stuff with them sometime. So now with what's going to happen with Dr. Alexander, that is a Dr. Rollo decision, right? The committee hired Dr. Alexander. They chose her. There were several people to apply. She was the one who got the job. And from my understanding and having talks with Dr. Rollo, she's going to have a good position within central office if she so chooses it, right? So I thank God for the work that she's done. I thank God for the work that all of those campus principals have done, because those students have succeeded in ways that people just didn't think that they could, to be honest, right? For the first time this coming school year, the majority is the largest class, and the majority of students coming from Dunbar into the early college high school. So that particular class has more Dunbar students than ever before who've qualified, because at Estacado Early College High School, that opportunity is open to every eighth grader in Lubbock ISD. We've got a lot of folks that are transferring from other districts to Lubbock Estacado for that early college high school program, simply because of the unique nature of that program. I still don't think a lot of people understand that it's called Estacado Early College High School because it's partnered directly with Texas Tech University. You got dual credit courses, you got AP courses, right? And most of our dual credit courses in collegiate high schools, they're going to partner with a junior college or a community college. This is one of the few high schools in the entire nation that is partnered with a Division I, Tier 1 research university, and they are considered Texas Tech students when they are in the early college high school. They have an E-Rater account. They have access to the library and everything out there. They go through orientation. Man, these kids are college and Texas Tech students and Lubbock Estacado students. And so when they graduate, and if they go from freshman to senior and they stay in there, they're graduating with like 60 hours of college credit, Texas Tech credit. And here's what Tech has done. Tech said, hey, we understand that if you get past so many hours, like 45 or 50 hours, then the likelihood of you going on to graduate and get your degree increases tremendously, right? So they are okay with students not even going to Tech and taking their credits to go and just finish college. You don't have that now. Here lately, the management of the program used to be at the College of Education out at Texas Tech. Now it's under it's in the provost office, and now they're saying, hey, we want our kids, so they've committed to step up and start coming on the campus and start talking to those kids like, no, we want you to come to Tech. We want you to come to Tech because it just makes so much more sense. But now we've got a lot of Dunbar kids that are in the early college high school program. So the Lubbock Partnership Network has worked tremendously.
Yeah,
we want to teach our kids. Yeah. We want to keep them here, and then when they're out of college, we want them to go right back in. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, we got like just a few minutes left. I did want to highlight some of these comments because I think it's important to get teacher input. I think it's important to get
absolutely
communities and schools input. And so I just wanted to highlight these. These were a couple of comments that were made as we were talking about the communications and the relationships between the district and the community. Alex, who is a teacher, says, I think it's a community effort. If we have people in the community constantly spreading misinformation and blowing small issues out of proportion, that does not support our schools, teachers, or students. Our schools are solution-oriented. We need our community to be solution-oriented as well. I would agree with Alex on this situation, and then I'll follow up with some of my thoughts after this. So Jaslyn, who is with Communities and Schools, says, task forces is a great idea. I follow a lot of schools that have consistent postings. I would like to see trustees, not just campus admin and staff, involved in the social media moving forward, especially when there are issues that need to be addressed. And Christina, who is a mentor at Estacado, serves in many other capacities in the community. She says, the accomplishments of the campus should be announced by the campus administration. There is no other way the information can be received and carried forward. She is asking, how are you going to improve this? We don't really have time to go into that part of it. What I will say is, and there's so many questions, we could probably do a 2-hour show. So I do want to get to one last thing, but I'll say this real quick. I absolutely agree with the sentiment that this is a community operation. And as much criticism as we can have, and maybe have valid reasons to have sometimes for the institution, we should also take a look at ourselves as a community, as parents. Are we doing our part? And if we are, fine. If you honestly feel in your heart, yes, I'm doing my part as a parent. I'm involved in the PTA. Even if I'm not involved in the PTA, I go to my kids' games. I go and I make sure they're doing their homework, right? The parent involvement, and I speak now as somebody who has worked in LISD for the last 3 years with communities and schools as a community partner and mentored to kids at Dunbar, OL Slayton, and even PIA. And so what I can tell folks from my own experience is the involvement of a responsible, caring, trusted adult is critical in these kids' lives. Now, sometimes you might have a situation where it's not the parents, maybe it's grandma at home. Then it gets a little tougher, right? That's when we got to pull in family members. Who are the uncles? Who are the people who care about these children and their well-being and their future so that you can be involved to some degree? I mean, everybody has their lives, right? But just to be involved in some degree, show up to their games, ask them if they studied for the test, ask them how they did on their star, all of these different things. Ask them how things are going, get involved. If you can, if you have the ability and the time to do that, get involved in the PTA. That's a great idea. And so that's my rant on that. The last thing I do want to ask, because I feel like this is a important question, it's been on a lot of people's minds, it's something that at least that I've seen, I could be wrong, maybe there was something put out, but this did sort of go viral for a bit too, the law program at Estacado. What happened with that? Why was the decision made to move that from Estacado to the ATC? Could you explain that? And then we'll just end on that note.
So the thing is that there was greater accessibility, or we wanted to increase the access to the robust program that's at the ATC. So I'm an advocate for the law program. I don't want to pull out my yearbook where I was on our mock trial team where we successfully defeated Lubbock High and Monterey. At that time, there was nothing that we would go out of district to do. We were defeated by Coronado at the district level here in Lubbock ISD. Always have been and always will be. One of the things is that the opportunity to do more of the mock trial information, the actual justice side of law was available at the ATC. Students were expressing that interest, right? And the program at the ATC was already available to Estacado students. It's not that we took it away from Estacado. More students were expressing interest in the judiciary rather than law enforcement, right? And our program at Lubbock, at Estacado, had been shifting towards a Skills USA law, just straight law enforcement. The attendance was down dramatically. The mock trial performances were down dramatically. And to continue to house the program at Estacado when there was the same program opportunity at the ATC, which included the judiciary, the principles of law, in a more robust fashion, it just was the right business move for Estacado. And this was not a decision that was made without anyone knowing. It was something that was and it just didn't happen overnight. It was something that we had been looking at for the last 5 years. And after the data was coming back, the financial reports, to maintain the program was costing Estacado more campus dollars than any other program that they had. So it was a choice for the school. It was a choice for the district that made good sense, and it was a choice for the students. The students are at the ATC. They get bused to the ATC. It's not that they had the program taken from them. They were exposed to a richer program.
Okay, Josh, do you have anything else before we go ahead and get
No, I mean, you're right. You know, I wish we had 2 hours to do this. I hope this won't be the last time. You know, I think this has been a very productive conversation, and we didn't get to so many questions, including my own. So we hope that you'll come back, and more than anything, we want you to know how much LISD means to all of us. I student taught at Coronado High School. I went to Littlefield, but I was in LISD, in and out my whole life. And certainly the Estacado system and all of its feeders mean a lot to us. That is one of the crown jewels of our city. And we want to see it taken care of. We're super proud of the accomplishments that have happened in that system and are happening all the time. But it's something very special to us as a community and something that we're very proud of. And so we're glad that you would come here and share your perspective on that. And also, take those accountability pieces. And I think it's really valuable. I hope you'll come back and know that this was from a place of wanting to see that school and system and everything across LISD be a value to our kids and our community in general. So thanks, Bill, from me.
Bless you, Josh. Thank you.
Yeah, and so I will just bring it to your attention, Bill, before we close out here, that there are some disagreements to your law program answers. So if you want to go check those out and engage with those folks and maybe try to get some communication going there. Last thing that I'll ask, this is a simple yes, no, or no comment. You can make your choice. We have heard whispers. These are rumors. I will say that. I have not seen any evidence or anything like that. These are just rumors. But there are some folks who would like me to ask, do you intend to rerun for LISD District 2, or are you intending to run for city council for District 2?
So I'm going to answer the best way that I can. And that's the same answer that I got when I very first ran for the school board. So my profession is a pastor. That's what I do professionally. When I decided to run for school board, it was because my faith, my belief, this is me. This is who I am. In prayer, I heard that instruction from the Spirit of the Lord. I want you to do this. This is what you will do. And so I did it out of obedience to the Almighty that I prayed to. And I did it when that year came around. We're in the beginning of a new year. I do not hear him telling me that I'm running for city council. I do not have a plan to do that at all. At all. I do not know if I'm going to be running again for this same seat. I don't know. I mean, I totally, guys. I mean, everybody might feel like that's far-fetched and it's like it's off in the woods and mysterious or something. It's not to me. I live by faith. I live by faith. And so I'm just praying because in truth, Dr. Rollo has asked me the same question. And I told him, I don't know. I'm waiting on the man upstairs to tell me what I'm supposed to do. I know that there's a filing deadline that'll be approaching next month. And I'm just asking for the same. I'm asking the same answer. I mean, asking the same question in prayer. Lord, what is it that you would have me to do? Right? I just don't know. I'm not running for city council. Absolutely, I am not running for city council. I know he hadn't told me to do that. Right? I think now I would say this, that in anyone that has a passion, I ran for this because, the Lord put me on this path. I shared with you and I'll share briefly. I'm like, it's like I'm not new to it. I didn't even know I was sort of doing school board stuff before I even got elected on the school board. I was the lead community accountability agent and co-grant creator for the co-grant director for what was known as the East Lubbock Promise neighborhood. Christina knows this. I helped to oversee that grant with Dr. Scott Ridley and myself, Ridley, and Dr. Aretha Marbley We spent a lot of time back in DC, Baltimore, here in Lubbock, crafting and putting that grant together. And then we got awarded it back in 2010, $24.5 million grant that came to Texas Tech that came in and did a lot of great work for the East Lubbock system, and I'm talking about the East Lubbock footprint. And one of two of the crowning achievement of that grant is the Estacado Early College High School. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If it had not been for the Promised Neighborhood Initiative, there would be no Early College High School. That was one of the things that I advocated for with Ridley, and he went to work and got it, and he made it happen. The second thing is the extended hours at our Parkway Community Clinic. That is a direct result of the advocacy that we had through the East Lubbock Promised Neighborhood. And so now our clinic is actually open on Sundays and stuff because of the work, the monies that we put into that, okay? And all of this I did as a volunteer. So that's what the school board is. You don't get paid for it. You just got to have a passion to want to do it. I've always had a desire not to talk about stuff, but to be about stuff. I want to see an improvement in the quality of life conditions within this community in which I reside, right? And so if you have that drive, if you have that passion, that is what needs to be at the forefront. If you're trying to make a name for yourself, if you want to be in the spotlight, this is probably not what you should be doing, right? That's not what I'm here to do. I'm not here to be seen. I'm not here to try to make a name for myself. I'm trying to fight for some kids. I'm trying to fight for opportunities for people who suffer from inequities, who suffer from lack of diversity, who suffer from not being included. The things that are being changed and the policies that are being, written down in Austin are blowing my mind. I think that's the fight that needs to be happening. We're trying to fight the people who are actually on the ground and on the front lines, and they're just pushing back. I owe a debt of gratitude for the Early College High School, to Senator Charles Perry, to Dustin Burrows, and to John Frulo. But now these same guys that helped to make Estacado what it is today, now it's like, what are you guys doing? And I've called Perry, I've called Tepper, and I haven't called Burrows, but I said I got to call them, and I'm going to keep calling them and asking them, what are y'all doing, man? Come on. That's just me. That's what we need to be doing. We need to come with a unified mindset and not just talk about it, but be about it, fellas. I mean, for real, and get in the game. I applaud you, Adam. That's what you're doing, right? Josh, I applaud you. This platform, that's what's happening. But we have to do it in a way where we're consistent, transparent, and vulnerable so that we all have that adherence to trust. And we can't be doing it because we want to make a name for ourselves. That's the preacher in me coming at it, man. And I know that was more than what y'all wanted, but I'm just saying that to anybody who wants to seek public office, please do it because your heart's in it and you want to see somebody's life get better, not trying to make a name for yourself.
Yeah, and Josh, I'm sorry, I got to close this out here. I will say that's a perfect segue into what I always go into about this. People have to run for offices, and I will say it until I'm blue in the face. If your first question to yourself or to somebody who says that to you is, am I qualified? You're asking the wrong question. Not one person who has ever been elected to office was qualified for that position till they did it. And you have your experiences, you've got whatever career you've had, you've got experience and knowledge and know-how. The only thing that you have to have, in my opinion, to be an effective elected official is to be a servant leader. And to be a servant leader, in my opinion, means that you take those frustrations that you have about the inequalities, the injustices, the various things that are happening in your life, in your community, for your friends and your family, and you don't use it to blow up and to do destructive things. You use it not to lose it. You keep it, but you use it as the fuel to do the necessary work, because this is hard. It takes a lot of brain power. It takes a lot of action. It takes a lot of relationship building and maintaining. And it takes doing that with people that you're not always going to agree with. And so this is something we've done from the beginning. This has been my mission. You can ask anybody that co-founded this organization with me. I've been saying it from the beginning. I will continue to have these conversations. I will continue to try to keep these communications open, even with folks that we may disagree with from time to time, because we're all we got. This is it. This is all the people that are here. So if we don't do it, who's going to do it? And if not now, when? So with that, I'll say thank you, Pastor Stubblefield. Thank you, Josh, as always. Thank you, everybody that has tuned in. So many great comments, so many great questions. I hope you keep the conversation going. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow. So thanks. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Good night.